Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna do a full chapter-by-chapter summary of the book A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the series. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Feyre wakes from nightmares of Amarantha's dungeons and vomits into the toilet of her marble bathing room. It has been 3 months since she returned to the Spring Court after being resurrected as a High Fae. Feyre has adjusted to her new immortal body, but notes she accidentally trips frequently and has shattered 5 glass doors by closing them too hard. She examines the dark ink tattoo coating her left hand, which allows Rhysand to watch her through the slitted eye etched into her palm. Tamlin remains asleep, though Feyre notes he often shifts into a beast of fur and claws and horns to watch the bedroom door at night. The two have an unspoken agreement to ignore the nightmares haunting them. Feyre reflects that while she saved the land, she has broken myself apart. Chapter 2. Feyre asks Tamlin to let her help rebuild the High Fae village, but he refuses because he does not have sentries to spare to escort her. Tamlin and Lucien prepare to hunt 5 Naga that slipped past the repaired wards. Feyre meets Ianthe, a high priestess and childhood friend of Tamlin who is planning the wedding festivities. Ianthe selects Feyre's daily gowns and previously presided over the winter solstice ceremonies. In a stuffy room, Feyre and Ianthe discuss seating charts and floral arrangements. Feyre forbids red roses because they remind her of Amarantha's hair and blood. Later, Feyre and Tamlin make love in her bedroom. Afterward, she asks if she will receive a title. Tamlin informs her that there is no such thing as a High Lady, and she will simply be Lady of the Spring Court. Chapter 3. Lucien offers to take Feyre to the village to inspect reconstruction progress. Feyre shoves him, demanding to know why he lied about falling off his horse when Naga actually tackled me off her. They ride to the village, where Lucien explains the tithe, a biannual tax paid to Tamlin in exchange for protection. At the village, construction is underway on stone and wood buildings. The villagers go silent upon seeing Feyre, calling her Feyre Cursebreaker. When Lucien offers help, a Fae male refuses, stating the debt is paid. Lucien explains that these Fae spent 50 years locked in lightless tunnels beneath Amarantha's mountain. They return to the estate after 20 minutes of being rejected. Feyre feels like an outsider and reflects on the vastness of my now unending existence as it yawns before her. Chapter 4. Guests arrive at the Spring Court a few days before the wedding. Ianthe introduces Feyre to sentries Bronn and Hart, who were under the mountain during her trials. Hart asks if Feyre has heard from Rhysand, causing Ianthe to stiffen. On the wedding day, Alice dresses Feyre in a voluminous monstrosity of tulle and chiffon. Feyre walks down the aisle toward the dais, where Tamlin waits in a green and gold tunic. She stops when she encounters white and red rose petals, which remind her of the Fae youth's blood. Feyre begins to panic, feeling the garden is too hedged in and inescapable. She retreats a step and silently begs for someone to save her. Thunder cracks and darkness erupts as Rhysand appears, straightening his lapels and saying, "Hello, Feyre darling." Chapter 5. Rhysand interrupts the wedding to call in his bargain, which requires Feyre to spend 1 week per month with him. Tamlin threatens Rhysand with claws, but Rhysand winnows Feyre away to the night court. They arrive at his private residence, a moonstone palace atop a mountain. Rhysand removes Feyre's silk gloves and confirms he heard her begging anyone, to rescue you. He informs her she is a guest with household privileges, not a prisoner. Rhysand notes he can see into her mind through the bond and is tired of seeing her hurl your guts up every night. Feyre hurls both her silk shoes at his head in anger. She finds turquoise nightclothes in an armoire and weeps in a large, plush bed. At dawn, the Shadow Twin handmaidens Nuala and Saradwen arrive to dress her. Chapter 6. Feyre joins Rhysand for breakfast on a glass table veranda overlooking snowy peaks. Rhysand explains that the Night Court is one of 3 solar courts that adhere to natural laws, unlike the seasonal courts. He demands Feyre learn to read and shield her mind from those who can walk into another person's mind. Rhysand's cousin Morgan, Mor, arrives and gives Feyre a bone-crushing hug. Rhysand takes Feyre to a curtained alcove where he has her write the alphabet and read a sentence he wrote. "You look absolutely delicious today, Feyre." He enters her mind with sharp claws to force her to practice mental defense. Feyre creates a wall of adamant to block him out. Rhysand notes her reading level is higher than he expected and tells her she could be reading novels by Ninsar. Chapter 7. Rhysand takes Feyre to a tower chamber with a map of Prythian and Hybern. He reveals that war is coming because the king of Hybern plans to reclaim human lands and shatter the wall. Rhysand asks Feyre to act as a go-between with Tamlin. He also requests her tracking skills to find an unspecified object. He suggests that since she was made by 7 High Lords, she may possess powers like shape-shifting or ice manipulation. Feyre spends the week practicing shielding and reading sentences like Rhysand is the most handsome High Lord. She overhears more reporting that Hybern forces slaughtered priestesses at a temple in Caesarea. Rhysand manifests massive black wings and flies off to meet Cashin and Osriel. At the end of the week, Rhysand winnows Feyre back to the Spring Court. Chapter 8. Tamlin and Lucien interrogate Feyre in the study about the Night Court's layout, weapons, and Rhysand's plans. Feyre describes the tower map room and mentions the temple attack. When she suggests training her manifested powers to use against Hybern, Tamlin refuses, claiming training would draw too much attention and "I can guard you." 1 week later, the tithe occurs in the Great Hall. Feyre sits beside Tamlin while emissaries bring gold, crops, and livestock. A water wraith explains that there are no fish left in the lake, and she cannot pay. Tamlin pitilessly gives her 3 days to pay or offer double next tithe. Feyre follows the wraith outside and gives her ruby-studded gold jewelry to pay the debt. The sentries watch with reproach as the wraith bows deeply. Chapter 9. During dinner, Tamlin slams his hand on the table, accusing Feyre of making the court look weak by paying the wraith's tithe. Feyre's temper flares, and she feels a force undulating along her bones. She suddenly finds herself inside Lucien's mind, seeing images and memories of his guilt and sadness. She notices 2 burned handprints on the wooden table when she leaves. Later, Tamlin visits her room and gives her a traveling painting kit with brushes and paints as an apology. Feyre begs to help him and to have fewer guards, stating, "I am drowning." Tamlin's power explodes in a blast that shatters the windows and splinters the furniture. The painting kit is destroyed, exploding into dust and glass and wood. Feyre drops to the floor as his power ravages the room. Chapter 10. Feyre realizes she built an invisible shield of solid wind that protected her from Tamlin's explosion. Tamlin kneels and apologizes, stating he cannot control his rage. For 2 weeks, the guards are reduced, and Feyre spends her days practicing reading and mental shielding in the library. Rhysand appears in the hallway outside her bedroom, startling her. He notes Feyre looks like she is running low on food and has lost weight. Tamlin orders Rhysand to leave, but Rhysand tells him he should have his wards inspected. Tamlin offers to give Rhysand anything to end the bargain. Rhysand refuses, stating, "I already have everything I want." Rhysand takes Feyre's hand and winnows her away to the Night Court. He notes through the bond that she felt a spike of fear during the month. Chapter 11. Feyre Arcaren stays at the Night Court for her 2nd monthly visit. She sits in a lounge overlooking the mountains and reads a book. Rhysand brings her plates of food. He asks what he can do to help her, noting she remains a ghost. He tells her the king of Hybern is preparing for war. Feyre tells him conversation over through their bond and blasts her mental shields. Rhysand uses his power to seal her book shut. Feyre throws the frost-coated book at his head. He shields against it and tells her to let him know if she needs someone to play with. The next morning, Rhysand winnows Feyre back to the Spring Court's formal gardens. Tamlin waits under an oak tree with a murderous expression. Rhysand tells Feyre to fight it before vanishing. Feyre returns to the manor, where sentries are reinstated in full force. Chapter 12. Tamlin and Lucien leave the Spring Court to deal with a nameless threat at the border. Feyre is restricted to the grounds with sentries monitoring her. Yanthe stays at the manor to provide company. While alone, Feyre notices her nails curving into claws that vanish into shadow. Lucien returns after 8 days and enters a study where Ianthe delivers news. Feyre overhears Ianthe suggesting Feyre be used for breeding and that Rhysand might keep her. Lucien asks Tamlin to let Feyre train, but Tamlin refuses, stating, "Do not push me on this." The next day, Tamlin and Lucien prepare to depart for the western sea border. Feyre asks to go with them, stating, "I can fight." Tamlin refuses and walks through the front door. Feyre attempts to follow but slams into an invisible wall of hardened air. Tamlin shielded the entire house, locking Feyre inside. Chapter 13. Feyre suffers a panic attack while trapped inside the warded manor. She sinks to the floor as a cocoon of darkness and fire and ice erupts around her. More winnows into the house, tells Feyre she is free, and carries her out. They pass through a cave and emerge into strawberry and grass-scented sunlight where Rhysand waits. He winnows Feyre to the Night Court's Moonstone Palace. Rhysand explains that Moore had to retrieve Feyre because protocol prohibited him from entering Tamlin's house. Feyre informs Rhysand, "I'm not going back." Rhysand offers Feyre a job to work for me in exchange for food and shelter. Feyre asks to accompany him on his next mission. Rhysand agrees and winnows them to a wood-paneled foyer inside a townhouse. Feyre realizes they are in a city. Rhysand identifies the location as Velaris, the City of Starlight. Chapter 14. Rhysand welcomes Feyre to his townhouse in Velaris. He explains that only he and Moore can winnow directly inside because the building is warded, shielded, and then warded some more. Cashin and Osriel bang on the front door, shouting for Rhysand to hurry up. A female voice, later identified as Amren, tells them they are worse than cats. Feyre retreats upstairs to a bedroom overlooking a winter garden. Handmaidens Nuala and Saradwen arrive to dress her in ivory sleeping clothes. Feyre asks how the city survived Amarantha's 50-year reign. Saradwen explains the walls have not been breached in 5,000 years. She states that Rhysand's actions to shield the city are his story to tell. Feyre goes to sleep in a plush bed. Downstairs, she hears the inner circle bickering and asking if there is food. Chapter 15. Feyre wakes after 4 hours and explores the city with Rhysand. She notes that Velaris is untouched and whole, unlike the rest of Prythian. Rhysand explains the city remained secret for millennia because of spells and wards cast by his ancestors. They walk along the Sidra River and visit the Palace of Thread and Jewels and the Palace of Bone and Salt. Rhysand mentions that the Rainbow of Velaris is the artist's quarter. He points out the House of Wind, a palace built into a red stone plateau. Rhysand tells Feyre they will dine there tonight with his inner circle. Feyre observes that the city dwellers do not fear Rhysand, instead greeting him by name. Rhysand tells Feyre, "My people are blameless," when she feels a spike of rage regarding their safety. They return to the townhouse to prepare for dinner. Chapter 16. Rhysand flies Feyre to the House of Wind for a family dinner. Feyre meets Cashin, commander of the armies, and Osriel, the spy master. Amren, Rhysand's second, arrives. Feyre notes her swirling silver eyes. During the meal, Cashin describes being a bastard-born nobody in Illyrian war camps. Rhysand explains his father was a cold and calculating High Lord who mated with a low-born Illyrian. He reveals he appointed his inner circle despite their lack of titles. Feyre accepts Rhysand's offer to work as his emissary to the mortal lands. Rhysand announces that the King of Hybern intends to resurrect Jurian, using a bone and an eye. Amren suggests they visit the bone carver in the prison to learn how to stop it. Feyre asks about the Court of Nightmares, and Moore explains she was a dreamer born into it. Chapter 17. Rhysand flies Feyre back to the townhouse. He reveals that he served as Amarantha's whore, to maintain the magic protecting Velaris. Feyre falls into a heavy sleep and dreams of Amarantha. She wakes up screaming and discovers she has manifested living claws of flame that shredded her bedding. Rhysand identifies the power as a gift from the Autumn Court. The next morning, they dress in Illyrian fighting leathers and winnow to an island in the Western Isles. Rhysand points to a mammoth mountain and identifies it as the prison. He explains that inmates are the foulest, most dangerous creatures. Feyre becomes paralyzed by the prospect of entering another mountain. She whispers, please, and Rhysand winnows them back to Velaris without question. Feyre spends the remainder of the day in bed. Chapter 18. Amren enters Feyre's room and provides a gold amulet, stating it got me out of the prison. Feyre and Rhysand return to the Western Isles and hike up the Grey Stone Mountain. Rhysand draws his sword and uses his blood to open the gates of bone. They descend into the mountain to the cell of the bone carver. The carver appears as a dark-haired boy around 8 years old. Rhysand gives him the Midgard Wyrm's calf bone. In exchange for information, Feyre describes her experience of death. The carver reveals the king of Hybern possesses the cauldron and restore its full power by looting temples. He explains that the Book of Breathings contains spells to negate the cauldron. One half is with the High Lord of Summer and the other with 6 human queens. The carver tells Feyre, I shall carve your death in here. Chapter 19. At the town house, Rhysand informs the inner circle about the cauldron and the Book of Breathings. He decides to use Feyre as a detector to track the book's halves. Rhysand tests her abilities by sending her to retrieve an object from the Weaver. He also proposes making Feyre an emissary to establish a base at her family estate, stating, the human world must be as prepared as we are. Feyre agrees to convince her sisters. The next morning, Rhysand helps Feyre into fighting leathers and a belt of knives. He warns her to make no sound and touch nothing but the object. He explains the Weaver is blind, but has lethal senses. Rhysand notes that the object has his imprint, making Feyre invisible to the creature if she touches only it. He calls Feyre my salvation before they depart for the neutral territory. Chapter 20. Rhysand winnows Feyre to an empty territory in the heart of Prythian. He identifies the forest as the home of the Weaver of the Wood. They find a small, whitewashed cottage in a clearing. Feyre approaches silently as Rhysand vanishes. Inside the cottage, a young woman with onyx hair sits at a spinning wheel, singing an ancient song about sisters. The room is filled with bric-a-brac, including shells, dolls, and dead birds. Feyre senses a pulse of light and tracks a salt and citrus scent to a shelf near the hearth. She finds a ring made of gold and silver strands set with the deepest, solid blue sapphire. Feyre plucks the ring from the shelf just as the Weaver finishes the lyrics, "Yonder is my sister that drowned me." The Weaver stops singing and the spinning wheel slows to a halt. Chapter 21. The Weaver's cottage doors and windows seal shut. The creature's appearance shifts into a gray, wrinkled, and sagging hag with rotting black pits for eyes. Feyre hurls a candle at bolts of woven thread to create a fire distraction. She scrambles into the hearth and climbs the chimney. The Weaver follows, but Feyre smashes a loosened brick into her hideous, horrible face. Feyre escapes onto the roof, which is thatched with human hair. She leaps into the trees and runs until Rhysand winnows to her. They return to the House of Wind, where Feyre vomited all over the floor from the smell of boiled fat. Feyre asks Cashin to teach me how to fight. Rhysand reveals the ring was his mother's heirloom. He later shares a memory of Yanthe attempting to rule Prythian by seducing him a century ago. Chapter 22. Feyre Arkharan prepares for her journey to the mortal realm. Mor visits Feyre's bedroom and explains she will not accompany the group because of how human societies restrict women's roles. Mor reveals she was born into the Court of Nightmares, where her family attempted to sell her off as prize mare once she began bleeding at age 17. Feyre chooses to fly with Osriel instead of Rhysand or Cashin. Rhysand winnows the group offshore to a tear in the magical wall. Osriel carries Feyre as they sweep through the crack in the sky. Feyre notes the sensation of the wall as it tries to close that gap before they emerge on a sandy beach below white cliffs. They arrive in the human lands, which Feyre identifies as her former home. The group approaches the Arkharan family's emerald-roofed estate in the winter-ravaged forest. Chapter 23. Feyre stands at the doors of her family's estate while Rhys, Cashin, and Osriel remain hidden by glamours. Mrs. Lauron, the housekeeper, answers the door and reacts to Feyre's fey appearance. Ellen and Nesta Arkharan meet Feyre in the drawing room. Feyre reveals she was dead, and then I was reborn remade. She explains the threat from Hybern and asks to use the house to meet with the mortal queens. Nesta initially refuses, stating she doesn't want Faye in her house or near Ellen. Ellen intervenes, noting she is engaged to a lord's son whose father hunts Fae. Ellen convinces Nesta to help, suggesting they send the servants away on holiday. Nesta mentions the lord's son, Rhysand, and describes his father's estate as a prison. Feyre compares Tamlin's desire to keep her caged in to the lord's wall. Chapter 24. Ellen dismisses the household staff, and Feyre invites Rhys, Cashin, and Osriel inside. Feyre introduces her sisters to the group, noting Rhys as the High Lord of the Night Court. During dinner, Nesta challenges Feyre about whether she is too good for normal food. Cashin confronts Nesta for letting Feyre risk her life hunting as a child. Ellen mentions the neighbors, the Betters, were murdered. Nesta eventually agrees to host the meeting and take a letter to the queens in the village. Rhys insists on staying the night for security reasons, requesting 2 adjacent rooms. He summons a separate small bed for himself in the guest room he shares with Feyre. Rhys reveals he is paying Feyre a wage and has established a bank account for her in Velaris. They discuss Feyre's birthday, which falls on the winter solstice. Chapter 25. Rhys and Feyre go to a forest far from the estate for power training. Rhys gives Feyre a candle and instructs her to light it, douse it with water, and dry the wick, using her magic. He provides a map showing the Illyrian steppes and Velaris. Rhys vanishes to let Feyre practice in private, but they exchange written notes that vanish and reappear through their magical bond. While Feyre is distracted by a note from Rhys about Cashin and Nesta bickering, the adder attacks her. The creature hauls Feyre off her feet and threatens to snap your neck if she does not stop thrashing. The adder, a commander from Hybern who previously served Amarantha, informs Feyre that the king of Hybern wants her. The chapter ends with the adder restraining Feyre in the snow-shrouded woods. Chapter 26. Night erupts as Rhysand arrives and binds the adder to an oak tree with twisting bands of night. Rhys shoots spears of night through the adder's wings and interrogates it. The adder reveals the king of Hybern ordered it to capture Feyre and that an army is coming soon. Osriel arrives silently and takes the adder away to a secret location using his siphons. Rhys admits he used Feyre as bait to see who is hunting her. This leads to a physical confrontation where Feyre shoves Rhys and demands he teach her to be a weapon instead of a pawn. Feyre winnows for the first time during the fight, appearing in front of Rhys to tackle him into the snow. Rhys laughs and asks her to repeat the maneuver, but she refuses and demands to return to the chateau. Chapter 27. Rhys and Feyre return to the Arharan estate to eat breakfast with Ellen and Nesta. Cashin and Osriel have departed to deal with the adder. Feyre and Rhys take the sisters to the village to mail the letter to the mortal queens while hidden by glamours. Afterward, Rhys flies Feyre back through the wall and winnows them to Velaris. Rhys leaves Feyre in the foyer without a word. Later, Rhys finds Feyre in the living room and reports that Osriel broke the adder in less than an hour in the hewn city. Rhys shares a memory of the interrogation through their mental bond. He reveals that the king of Hybern has built an army and that Tamlin has sealed the Spring Court's borders. Feyre writes a final letter to Tamlin stating she left of her own free will and is not coming back. Chapter 28. Rhys offers to take Feyre out in Velaris at night. Amren visits Feyre's room and gives her a gold amulet of pearl and cloudy blue stone, claiming it helped her escape the prison. Amren later reveals the amulet has no magic and was a test of Feyre's trust. Feyre learns that Nuala and Saradwen are half-wraiths trained by Osriel as spies. Amren clarifies that the Night Court does not have a tithe and is founded on the principles to defend, to honor, and to cherish. Feyre prepares for dinner with the inner circle. She observes Mor and Cashin bickering about who can travel faster. Osriel returns from dealing with the adder and prepares to infiltrate the mortal realm. Feyre returns the amulet to Amren before they depart to explore the city of Velaris after dark. Chapter 29. The group walks through Velaris, crossing a marble bridge over the Sidra River. They dine at a small riverside restaurant where the owner knows Rhys and his friends. Amren consumes a goblet of fresh and hot blood instead of regular food. After dinner, Osriel, Mor, and Cashin go dancing at a club called Rita's. Rhys and Feyre walk home along the river. Rhys explains that an ancient High Lord built Velaris as a hidden city for the Dreamers and used magic to keep it secret. Feyre hears a symphony that Rhys reveals he sent into her cell under the mountain because she was breaking. That night, Rhys and Feyre exchange flirtatious notes through their magical bond. Rhys sends a vision of Feyre in red lace into her mind, which prompts her to reinforce her mental shields. Chapter 30. Feyre spars with Cashen at the House of Wind. Cashen teaches her hand-to-hand combat and explains that Illyrians receive tattoos for luck and glory. Feyre admits her guilt regarding the fairies she killed under the mountain, and Cashen offers grim understanding. Rhys arrives and cocoons Feyre in his wings to comfort her. They discuss the elemental gifts Feyre received from the other High Lords, specifically the Autumn Court, fire from Baron. Rhys challenges Feyre to summon darkness. When she struggles, Rhys uses his own power to fill the ring with a soothing, sparkling dark filled with stars. Feyre finds she can breathe easily in this darkness. She declines further training for the day and asks Cashen to fly her home instead of winnowing with Rhys. Chapter 31. Cashen trains Feyre with Illyrian daggers at the House of Wind while Amren watches. Mor joins them, and Cashen questions where she went the previous night. Rhys arrives with news that the Summer Court has invited them to visit. He announces that only he, Feyre, and Amren will go to Adriata. Cashen is banned from the Summer Court for eternity after he wrecked one building during a previous visit. Rhys explains that Amren is coming because the Summer Court is terrified of her and to look for treasure. Feyre realizes her task is to track and steal the first half of the Book of Breathings. Rhys and Feyre engage in a flirtatious exchange about Calanmai. The chapter ends as they prepare to winnow directly into the Summer Court's palace. Chapter 32. Rhysand winnows Feyre and Amren directly into Adriata, the capital of the Summer Court. They arrive at a tan stone palace situated on a mountain island. High Lord Tarquin greets them alongside Princess Cressida and Prince Varian. Amren identifies Varian as the captain of the guard. During a formal lunch in a room of green glass, the group discusses the impending war with Hybern. Cressida labels Feyre a stolen bride and reminds the group that legal protocol requires her return to the Spring Court. Rhysand counters by stating that anyone attempting to return Feyre to Tamlin will find their lives will be forfeit. Tarquin interrupts the argument to invite the guests to a party aboard his pleasure barge in the bay that evening. After the meal, the guests are shown to a suite of rooms overlooking the sea. Rhysand orders Feyre to get that book, but warns her not to get caught. Chapter 33. Rhysand enters Feyre's bedroom to discuss the mission. Feyre manifests Tarquin's power by raising water from the floor, separating it into droplets, and shooting them at Rhysand's face. That evening, the group boards a gold Anwood pleasure barge in the bay. Tarquin wears a white gold crown fashioned like cresting waves. Feyre inquires about the Summer Court treasure trove, and Tarquin offers a tour for the following afternoon. He describes his intention to eliminate class privileges for high fae over lesser fairies. Feyre tells him, "It would be very easy to love you." At the upper table, Rhysand flirts with Cressida, tracing circles on her hand. Feyre leaves the table to stand by the railing at the stern. When the barge docks at the island city an hour later, Feyre reunites with Amren, Varian, and Tarquin at the docks. Rhysand and Cressida are absent from the returning group. Chapter 34. Feyre spends the morning practicing water magic in her bathtub before meeting Tarquin at 2 o'clock. Tarquin leads her to a series of treasure troves located deep beneath the castle behind a heavy lead door. The rooms contain gold, jewels, and ancient armor, but Feyre identifies no books. Tarquin presents her with a gift, a necklace of black diamonds. He reveals that Rhysand spared his cousin's life under the mountain and confirms he will not report Feyre's presence to Tamlin. Upon returning to her suite, Feyre finds Rhysand in her bedroom. He reveals that he did not sleep with Cressida, but took her for a drink to gather information. Rhysand admits he felt jealous because Feyre offered Tarquin a genuine smile. He explains that Tarquin's neutral status allows for a level of ease that he cannot personally achieve. The two share a drink and toast to the dreams that are answered. Thanks for listening. This book is 69 chapters long, so I had to split it into 2 parts, so check out part 2 for the continuation of the book. I'll link it down below. If there's a book you'd like me to cover next, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your suggestions. Have you read this one? If you have, please tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or was it just okay? If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for more full book summaries. See you in the next one.